I got post. I see how it is. I see how it is. And with that, I'm kicking off season 3 of Has Steve read this? Woo, yeah, wow. If I can get a PNG overlay of a firework going off on my face like right now, this is going to be the greatest edit ever. Last year, Papa Booktube Bless kickstarted off season 2, and I thought I would put my hat into the ring, but I apparently went really easy. I wasn't entirely sure of the scope that we were allowed to put books in, but seeing some other channels and some of the recommendations there, I could have gone way harder. And so, to guarantee myself the 60% of the 8 books, how many that counts as, I'm not entirely sure. I basically want to do a better job than the single damn bean. I could have gone way harder, and I guarantee, Steve, that's what I'm going to do today. The Booker Boy is back with Avengers. I have watched all the other season 2 videos. I watched so many videos to try and figure out what Steve Donahue might not have read. And I think I have seen a theme, but I'm not telling you that because I want to have the most beans by the end of the season. Capiche? What are the rules? Choose 8 books, and it has to be fair, open, and honest. You can't choose something that like currently isn't available in the US, or he'd never be able to have an opportunity to read it. That's unfair. You can't do that. But it feels as though the floodgates are open, and I'm going to be there on my paddleboard, coming down the waves. Yeah, this metaphor isn't working, but trust me, we're kickstarting off 2018 publication, Thatcher's Tomb by Stephen Barber. Barber is a professor in the Kingston College in London. This book is told in verse and tells an alternative history of the rise of Thatcher and Thatcherism, whilst also talking about the decay of Thatcherism and the decay of Britain during the rise of Thatcher. This is a guaranteed bead, and another guaranteed bead would be Mondegreen by Vladimir Rafayenko. This has been translated from the Ukrainian by Mark Andrich and was published this year, 2022, by Harvard College. The reason why I was made aware of this book and why I paid for it to come to the UK is that this was partially funded by Razom for Ukraine, who are a charity who are working their absolute butts off to help out with what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. If you are on Instagram, Genkin Reads, I'll put a link down below, as she works helping out with Razom and wants to get more Ukrainian literature into people's hands. Mondegreen is about a refugee who has come from the Donbass region, which is one of the regions that Russia feels as though should be rightfully theirs and has invaded. This book looks into Ukrainian culture and language and how the Ukrainian identity has formed as part of that, and even when it's tried to be grappled away from them, how the Ukrainians can bravely hold on to what is theirs. Guaranteed Bead. Another Guaranteed Bead is a publication from 2022. It is available in the US, don't you worry, and that is Audrey Sash's Zealous Immaculate. Audrey Sash is an author I only came across last year, and I've read 3 of her works so far, including this one, and I think Sash is absolutely wonderful. This is experimental, gory, violent. Since reviewing Sash's books, I now speak to Sash, and if you've ever been tempted to start reviewing books, I would 100% recommend it, because the conversations and the chats that you get involved in are absolutely superb. I'm not entirely sure about this one. This came out in 2021 and it was translated from the Welsh, and that is The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross, who wrote the original Welsh text, Llyfr Glas Nebo. This book, when it was published in the Welsh, did rounds. I couldn't go into a shop without seeing Llyfr Glas Nebo. It has been recently published into English, and I actually didn't know it was published into English. Interestingly, this does say uncorrected proof, but I bought it from a second-hand bookstore in Cardiff. I don't know enough Welsh to jump into the Welsh original, but I was speaking to Heather from Soggy Book Expat, and she was the one who got me on to knowing that there was an English translation that came out recently, and I saw this, I think it was like a week later. The stars aligned, it was fate. I hope that's a bean. This next one, a guaranteed bean. No one said it couldn't, this doesn't count. I think someone had put like a history of baskets, and that was eligible. So I'm going to go for the German translated Zwei für mich, ein für dich. Yes, 2 for you, 1 for me, by Jörg Müller, which came out in 2018 in German and then was published by Gecko Press, which is in New Zealand, into English, which was in my local library that I picked up for kids. This is definitely a book that requires some Marxist critique, as the bear and weasel fight over who is to have 2 of the 3 available mushrooms for their dinner. But what they don't foresee, which is a plot twist, is that a fox comes along, clearly a representation of the bourgeoisie, and obtains the 3rd mushroom due to them being distracted by the materialistic goods and the wanting of capital in order to sustain themselves. There's a lot of pride that goes into possession, and the bourgeoisie is able to take the capital from the proletariat by exploiting their goods. Bear was the one who obtained the mushroom, but Weasel has put his hard work searing in the heavy pan the mushrooms and garnishing them with a little parsley. What Bear and Weasel fail to understand is that by wanting the excess, they fail to see what is in front of them, and the end moves into a very they are undertones of the Mrs. Sisyphus, that wild strawberries come out at the end for dessert, and yet there are 3, a very open ending for the reader. Is this to start again? Is this an endless cycle of the haves and the have-nots? A very important book. I maintained a straight face all the way through it, and I'm very proud of myself. Another book that I think Steve might have come across would be Just a Pig by Ludmila Ulitskaya, which has been translated from the Russian. Ulitskaya is someone I believe who, like, 1,000% deserves the Nobel Prize in literature. This book talks about an actual plague that happened during the Stalinist regime, which very much coincides with the skepticism, with the terror, with the forced lockdowns that happened during COVID-19. The parallels are stark, and I believe that's the reason why Ulitskaya decided to pen this novel. Coming in at 126 pages, this is an effortless piece of prose, and the translation by Polly Gannon is absolutely sublime. So he might have read this, but I'm basing this off the fact that it took 50 years for this to be published in English, and although the author is a Nobel laureate, although the author is widely known, I didn't know about this book until someone from Serbia told me about it. I was completely unaware, and it cost me an absolute butt ton, and if you want that in imperial rather than metric, a bum ton, for me to get this copy. And this is Andrew Ivich's Bosnian Chronicle. In the original Serbo-Croat, this is called the Travnica Chronicle, which makes way more sense because this entire 500-page, Bosnian version of Wolf Hall is set in the town of Travnik. It is a melting pot of cultures, of nationalities. You have the Muslims, you have the Bosnians, you have Croatians, you have Christians, you have Jews, you have the Serbs, who are all within this town, and it is viewed as a backwards place at the epicenter of where the Western world and the Ottoman Empire almost collide, and you have the Austrian, the Ottoman, and the French consuls coming in trying to westernize this town. But this is a place where people literally throw dead rotted limbs at outsiders, so that doesn't really go to plan. This is part of a trilogy, but it's not like a chronological trilogy. It's not a real book 1, 2, and 3. They were all published within the same year, but I think the most notable is The Bridge Over the Drina. That's the book that everyone knows. But Bosnian Chronicle came out, half a century later, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So if you can get a copy of Bosnian Chronicle, please do. Lastly, we have to go out with a bang. Oh, I should probably put that up there. We've started a precedence, we're going to stick to it. I didn't know this book existed. This was sent to me from Croatia. You can obtain it worldwide. This is a cover and a half. This is Olga Shinowa's The Goldsmith's Treasure. Shinowa is the Croatian Dickens, and The Goldsmith's Daughter is the first historical novel ever written in Croatian. This book is melodramatic. It is it's just melodramatic in like the best like Dickensian way possible. Shinowa was highly influenced by Flaubert, by Dickens, and that's talked within the preface and introduction. This book is trying to plot out Zagreb within the 16th century. You will probably all be blinded by that. And Shinowa really documents the city of Zagreb, talking about the stone wall, all the little stalls, the streets, and apparently I've not been to Zagreb, but I had to get Google Maps out. I was trying to plot where Shinowa is talking about, and it's pretty spot on. I gotta give it to him. It is spot on. But yeah, like the first historical novel, like it made me think like how recent is the historical novel, and what constitutes as a historical novel. But yeah, Shinowa did it first in like I think it was like the 1880s. I've just double checked. He wrote like a little introduction in 1871. So the 1870s, the first ever historical novel. That's what I think is going to guarantee me a bean. I mean, I at least should get a bean just for the cover alone. I know that's not the game, but go with me. But this Steve, I want my 60% beans. I want beans. Put beans all in this room. I want to be smothered in beans. I mean, there'll only be 8 beans. It won't be a smother. It'll be a smattering. But I hope the people joined in because I really took it to heart last year when I only got 1, and I've not slept since.